My name is Nikos. Well, it is now. Back then, when it all happened, I was just called Little Nikos, mostly because I was always trailing after my grandfather, Papoyanus. He was the one who knew everything, or at least, that's what it felt like. He knew the names of every herb that grew on Mount Parnassus, every star that blinked in the night sky, and every story the wind whispered through the olive groves. It was 1979, though it didn't feel like a year in a book. It felt like, always. Like the mountains had always been there, and we had always lived at their feet, and Papoyanus would always be there to tell me stories. We lived in a small village called Nea Epidavros, not far from the ancient ruins of Epidavros, the one with the amazing theater. Most folks in the village were farmers, growing olives and grapes, and raising goats. Life was slow. Not boring, exactly, just steady. The air always smelled of sun-baked earth, wild thyme, and the sea, which wasn't too far away. The sun was fierce in the summer, turning the rocks white and making the cicadas scream their endless song. Winters were cold, with biting winds that came down from the mountains, but even then, the sun usually peeked through, reminding you that spring would come again. Papoyanus wasn't a farmer like most of the men in the village. He was a seeker. He wasn't a scholar, not in the way the men in Athens were. He hadn't gone to university or read fancy books. His university was the mountain itself. He'd spent his life wandering its slopes, collecting stones, bones, and stories. He said the mountain remembered everything, and if you listened closely enough, it would tell you its secrets. I was 8 years old, small for my age, with a mop of dark hair that Papoyanus always tried to keep out of my eyes. I was a curious boy, always asking questions, always poking around. I loved following Papoyanus on his expeditions, even though they were often long and tiring. I'd carry his water skin and a small bag with bread and olives, feeling important and grown up. It started with the rain. We'd had a particularly heavy spring, and the rains had washed away a section of the hillside near a place Papoyanus called the Eagle's Nest. It wasn't a real nest, not for eagles anyway. It was a rocky outcrop high on the mountain, where he said eagles used to build their homes long ago. He went to check on the damage, and I, of course, went with him. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and pine needles. The ground was muddy and slippery, and we had to pick our way carefully through the loose rocks. Papoyanus was unusually quiet, his eyes scanning the exposed earth. He wasn't looking for anything specific, not at first. He was just observing. "Look, Nikos," he said finally, pointing to a patch of dark earth. "The mountain is revealing its bones." I looked, but all I saw was mud and rocks. "Bones, Papo." He knelt down, carefully brushing away the dirt with his hands. "Not animal bones, little Nikos. Something older. Something different." And then I saw it. A piece of bone, larger than any animal bone I'd ever seen. It was dark brown, almost black, and strangely shaped. It wasn't smooth and rounded like a cow's bone, or flat like a fish's. It was thick and curved, with ridges and bumps. Papoyanus carefully unearthed more of it. "It was a piece of a jawbone," he said, "and a very old one at that." He didn't say exactly how old, but the way he looked at it, the reverence in his touch, told me it was something special. "This isn't a bone from anything we know, Nikos," he said, his voice hushed. "This is from something lost. Over the next few weeks, Papogiannis and a small team of people from the university in Athens began to excavate the site. The team was led by a woman named Dr. Demetriou, a paleontologist. She was a whirlwind of energy, always bustling around, giving orders, and examining every fragment of bone with intense focus. She spoke quickly and used words I didn't understand, like hominid and fossil. I spent most of my time watching them work, fascinated by their careful movements and the strange tools they used, small brushes, picks, and even tiny vacuum cleaners. They work slowly and meticulously, carefully removing the earth around the bones. It was like uncovering a secret, layer by layer. Dr. Demetriou explained, in a way I could understand, that they were looking for the remains of an ancient ape, a creature that lived millions of years ago. She said this ape was different from any other they had found before. It was more human-like than a monkey, but not quite a human. It was something in between. We believe this creature may be a missing link, Nikos, she said, smiling at me. A piece of the puzzle that will help us understand how humans evolved. I didn't fully understand what she meant by missing link or evolved, but I understood that they had found something important, something that could change the way people thought about the past. The village was buzzing with excitement. Old man Costas, who claimed to remember everything that had ever happened in Neaepidavros, said his grandfather had told stories about strange creatures that lived in the mountains long ago, creatures that walked upright and had faces like humans. Most people dismissed it as folklore, but now, with the discovery of the bones, they started to wonder if there might be some truth to the stories. I became Dr. Demetriou's shadow, following her around the dig site, asking questions and helping in any way I could. I wasn't much help with the actual excavation, but I was good at carrying things and keeping the area tidy. She was patient with me, explaining everything she was doing and answering my endless questions. "What did this ape eat, Dr. Eleni?" I asked one day, watching her carefully clean a small tooth. "We think it ate mostly fruits and leaves, Nikos," she said. "But also nuts and seeds. It was a vegetarian, like many apes." "Was it strong?" "Very strong," she said. "It had powerful jaws and teeth for crushing hard nuts and seeds. And it was probably quite agile, able to climb trees and move through the forest with ease." "Did it have enemies?" "Oh, yes," she said, her eyes twinkling. "It probably had to watch out for big cats and other predators. Life was dangerous back then." As more bones were unearthed, a picture began to emerge of this ancient ape. It was about the size of a chimpanzee, but its body was more robust, its limbs longer, and its brain larger. Its face was different too, more human-like, with a flatter nose and a more prominent brow ridge. Dr. Demetriou named it Ouranopithecus, which means ape of the heavens in Greek. She said it was a fitting name, because the bones were found high on the mountain, close to the sky. The discovery of Ouranopithecus brought a lot of attention to Neaepidavros. Journalists from all over Greece came to the village, interviewing Dr. Demetriou, Papogiannis, and even me. Photographers snapped pictures of the dig site, the village, and the surrounding mountains. The village, usually so quiet and peaceful, was suddenly filled with noise and activity. I remember one journalist asking Papogiannis if he had always believed there were ancient creatures living in the mountains. Papogiannis smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "The mountain holds many secrets, young man," he said. "You just have to know how to listen." The excavation continued for several months, and more bones were discovered. They found pieces of the skull, the spine, the ribs, the arms, and the legs. They even found a few teeth, which Dr. Demetriou said were particularly important for determining the ape's age and diet. One day, Dr. Demetriou showed me a piece of the skull. It was a fragment of the forehead, with a small part of the eye socket still intact. "Look closely, Nikos," she said. "Do you see anything special about this bone?" I looked, but I didn't see anything special. It just looked like a piece of bone to me. "Look at the shape of the eye socket," she said. "It's more rounded than a monkey's. It's more like a human's. This suggests that Ouranopithecus had better vision than most apes, and that it may have relied more on sight than smell." I was amazed. Just by looking at a piece of bone, she could learn so much about this creature that had lived millions of years ago. As the excavation neared its end, Dr. Demetriou and her team began to reconstruct the skeleton of Ouranopithecus. It was a painstaking process, fitting the bones together like a giant puzzle. I spent hours watching them work, marveling at their skill and patience. Finally, after months of hard work, the skeleton was complete. It wasn't a perfect skeleton, of course. Some bones were missing, and others were fragmented. But it was close enough. It was a complete enough representation of Ouranopithecus to give everyone a sense of what this ancient ape had looked like. The skeleton was put on display in a small museum in Epidavros. It was the centerpiece of the museum, attracting visitors from all over Greece and beyond. I remember standing in front of the skeleton with Papoyannis, gazing at it in awe. "He was a magnificent creature, wasn't he, Papo?" I said. Papoyannis nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and wonder. "He was, little Nikos. He was a reminder that we are all connected to the past, to the creatures that came before us." The discovery of Ouranopithecus changed Epidavros. The village became a center for paleontological research, attracting scientists and students from all over the world. The museum brought in tourists, boosting the local economy. But more importantly, the discovery gave the village a sense of pride and identity. We were no longer just a small, remote farming village. We were the place where Ouranopithecus was found, the place where a piece of human history had been unearthed. But the biggest change was in Papoyannis. He had always been a respected figure in the village, but after the discovery of Ouranopithecus, he became a legend. People sought his advice, listened to his stories, and treated him with a newfound reverence. He seemed to enjoy the attention, but he never let it go to his head. He remained the same humble, wise old man I had always known. He continued to wander the mountains, collecting stones, bones, and stories. But now, he wasn't just looking for the secrets of the past. He was also looking for the future. He believed that by understanding the past, we could learn how to build a better future. One evening, as we were sitting on the porch of our house, watching the sunset over the mountains, Papoyannis turned to me and said, "You know, Nikos, Ouranopithecus wasn't just an ape. He was a pioneer. He was one of the first creatures to walk upright, to use his hands to manipulate objects, to develop a larger brain. He was a step on the path that led to us. So, we're related to him?" I asked. "Yes, little Nikos," he said. "We are all related. We are all part of the same family. We are all connected to the earth, to the mountains, to the stars." He paused, looking out at the darkening sky. "And it's our responsibility to protect that connection, to preserve the past, and to build a future where all creatures can thrive." I didn't fully understand what he meant at the time. I was just a boy, after all. But I knew that his words were important. I knew that he was telling me something profound, something that would stay with me for the rest of my life. The years passed. I grew up, went to school, and eventually left Neopetavros to study archaeology in Athens. I followed in Papoyannis's footsteps, becoming a seeker of the past. I spent my career excavating ancient sites, uncovering the remains of lost civilizations. But no matter where my travels took me, I always returned to Neopetavros. I always returned to the mountains that had shaped my life. And I always visited the museum, to stand before the skeleton of Ouranopithecus, and remember the summer that changed everything. Papoyannis passed away when I was in my 20s. I was heartbroken, of course. But I knew that he had lived a full and meaningful life. He had left behind a legacy of wisdom, kindness, and a deep respect for the natural world. Before he died, he gave me a small, smooth stone that he had found on the mountain. "Keep this with you, Nikos," he said. "It's a piece of the mountain. It's a reminder of where you come from." I still carry that stone with me today. It's a tangible link to my past, to my grandfather, and to the ancient ape that we discovered together. Sometimes, when I'm working on an excavation, or when I'm lecturing to my students, I think about Ouranopithecus. I think about the millions of years that have passed since he walked the earth. I think about the challenges he faced, the dangers he overcame, and the legacy he left behind. And I realize that he wasn't just an ape. He was a symbol of our shared humanity. He was a reminder that we are all part of a long and unbroken chain of life. And he was a testament to the power of curiosity, perseverance, and the enduring human spirit. The world has changed a lot since 1979. Technology has advanced, societies have evolved, and our understanding of the past has deepened. But some things remain the same. The mountains still stand, the sun still shines, and the wind still whispers its secrets. And every time I return to Neopetavros, I can still smell the sun-baked earth, the wild thyme, and the sea. I can still hear the cicadas screaming their endless song. And I can still feel the presence of Papoyannis, guiding me, teaching me, and reminding me that the past is always present, waiting to be discovered. I often wonder what Dr. Demetriou would think of the advancements in paleoanthropology today. The genetic sequencing, the 3D modeling, the sophisticated dating techniques, it's all so far beyond what she could have imagined. But I suspect she would be thrilled. She was a true scientist, driven by a relentless curiosity and a passion for uncovering the truth. And I think she would be proud of what Ouranopithecus has come to represent. He's no longer just a collection of bones in a museum. He's a symbol of our origins, a reminder of our place in the natural world, and a source of inspiration for future generations of scientists and explorers. I have my own grandchildren now. Little Eleni and little Yannis, named after Dr. Demetriou and my grandfather. I take them to the museum in Neopetavros, and I tell them the story of Ouranopithecus. I tell them about Papoyannis, about Dr. Demetriou, and about the summer that changed everything. And I hope that, like me, they will be inspired by the story. I hope that they will develop a love for the past, a respect for the natural world, and a desire to uncover the secrets that lie hidden beneath the surface. Because the mountain still holds many secrets, you see. And it's waiting for someone to listen. It's waiting for someone to seek. It's waiting for someone to discover. And maybe, just maybe, it's waiting for them to find something even more extraordinary than Ouranopithecus. The earth remembers everything, after all. And the story is never truly finished. It just keeps unfolding, layer by layer, with each new discovery, with each new generation, with each new whisper of the wind through the olive groves. And I, little Nikos, am just a small part of that story, a storyteller passing it on, hoping it will continue to echo through the mountains for generations to come. The scent of time and sun-baked earth, it's a smell that will always bring me home. The years following the initial excitement around Ouranopithecus settled into a rhythm of ongoing research. The museum in Epidavros wasn't just a static display, it became a hub. Dr. Demetriou, despite accepting a prestigious position at the University of Athens, maintained a strong connection, returning frequently with teams of students. She established a small research lab adjacent to the museum, focusing on comparative primate anatomy and paleobotany, trying to reconstruct the environment Ouranopithecus inhabited. I, having completed my archaeology degree, found myself drawn back to Epidavros, not just for visits, but to work alongside Dr. Demetriou. It wasn't a grand academic pursuit, initially. I helped organize the museum's collection, cataloging artifacts found in the surrounding area, pottery shards, tools from later settlements, even Roman coins. It was meticulous work, but it grounded me, connected me to the continuous flow of history. It was during this period, in the late 1980s, that a new mystery began to emerge. Dr. Demetriou, analyzing pollen samples taken from the original Ouranopithecus excavation site, noticed something peculiar. The pollen wasn't consistent with the vegetation currently found on Mount Parnassus. It indicated a warmer, more humid climate, a landscape dominated by broadleaf forests rather than the pine and oak we knew. It's as if Ouranopithecus lived in a different world, Nikos, she said, her brow furrowed in concentration. A world that was significantly warmer and wetter than today. This discovery sparked a new wave of investigation. Dr. Demetriou theorized that the climate change might have played a role in Ouranopithecus's eventual extinction. Perhaps the changing environment couldn't support its dietary needs, or perhaps it couldn't adapt quickly enough to the new conditions. The search for evidence led us to a different part of Mount Parnassus, a steep, heavily forested ravine known locally as the Devil's Throat. It was a forbidding place, shrouded in mist and legend. Locals whispered stories of bandits and wild animals, and few dared to venture into its depths. Papogiannis, even before his passing, had warned me about the Devil's Throat. The mountain keeps its secrets close there, Nikos, he'd said. It's a place of shadows and echoes. Be careful. But Dr. Demetriou was undeterred. She believed that the ravine might contain geological layers that could provide further clues about the climate during Ouranopithecus's time. And, she admitted with a glint in her eye, she was intrigued by the challenge. The excavation in the Devil's Throat was far more difficult than the original dig. The terrain was treacherous, the vegetation dense, and the weather unpredictable. We had to hack our way through thick undergrowth, scale steep cliffs, and contend with frequent rainstorms. The air was damp and cold, and the smell of decaying leaves and damp earth hung heavy in the air. I remember one particularly harrowing day when a landslide blocked our access to the excavation site. We spent hours clearing away the debris, working under the watchful eyes of the mountain. It felt like the mountain itself was trying to protect its secrets. But we persevered. And slowly, painstakingly, we began to uncover a treasure trove of information. We found fossilized leaves, seeds, and fruits, providing a detailed picture of the ancient forest. We found the remains of other animals, deer, boar, and even a small species of rhinoceros, that had lived alongside Ouranopithecus. And then, we found something truly remarkable. A layer of volcanic ash, dating back approximately 9 million years. The ash had been deposited by a volcanic eruption on a nearby island in the Aegean Sea. "This is incredible, Nikos," Dr. Demetriou exclaimed, her voice trembling with excitement. "This ash layer will allow us to date the fossils with incredible precision. We can finally determine exactly when Ouranopithecus lived." The analysis of the ash revealed that Ouranopithecus had lived during the late Miocene epoch, a period of significant climate change in Europe. The climate had been gradually cooling, and forests were giving way to grasslands. But the volcanic ash also revealed something else. Traces of fluorine, an element that leaches into bones over time. The amount of fluorine in the Ouranopithecus bones was significantly higher than expected. This suggests that the bones were buried for a very long time, Nikos, Dr. Demetriou said, her voice now tinged with concern. "Much longer than we originally thought." Further analysis revealed that Ouranopithecus hadn't lived 9 million years ago. He had lived closer to 16 million years ago. A staggering revelation. It pushed Ouranopithecus back to a much earlier stage in human evolution, making him one of the oldest known hominids. The discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. It challenged existing theories about the origins of humans and forced scientists to rethink the evolutionary timeline. But the most intriguing discovery came towards the end of the excavation. Buried deep within the volcanic ash, we found a small, stone tool. It wasn't a sophisticated tool, just a simple flake, but it was undeniably man-made. Or, rather, hominid-made. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Demetriou breathed, carefully examining the tool. "This is the oldest evidence of tool use ever found in Europe." The tool was a game changer. It suggested that Ouranopithecus wasn't just an ape. He was a proto-human, a creature capable of abstract thought and problem-solving. He was a step closer to us than anyone had ever imagined. The discovery of the tool also raised a new question: how did Ouranopithecus learn to make tools? Was it a spontaneous invention, or was it something he had learned from another species? Dr. Demetriou theorized that Ouranopithecus might have observed other animals using tools, such as monkeys using stones to crack open nuts. He might have then experimented with different materials, eventually discovering that certain stones could be shaped into useful tools. The excavation in the Devil's Throat lasted for several years. It was a grueling, challenging, but ultimately rewarding experience. We uncovered a wealth of information about Ouranopithecus and his world. We learned about his diet, his habitat, his behavior, and his place in the evolutionary tree. But the excavation also left me with a sense of melancholy. As we unearthed the bones and artifacts, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. Ouranopithecus was gone, vanished from the earth millions of years ago. All that remained were his bones, his tools, and his story. And yet, his story wasn't over. It was being rewritten, reinterpreted, and reimagined with each new discovery. And I was a part of that story, a small but significant part. After Dr. Demetriou's retirement, I took over as director of the museum and the research lab. I continued to oversee the ongoing research, collaborating with scientists from all over the world. One of the most exciting projects involved analyzing the DNA extracted from the Ouranopithecus bones. The DNA was fragmented and degraded, but scientists were able to piece together enough of it to determine Ouranopithecus's genetic relationship to other hominids. The results were surprising. Ouranopithecus wasn't directly ancestral to humans. He was a side branch on the evolutionary tree, a distant cousin. But he was still important. He represented a crucial step in the evolution of hominids, a step that paved the way for the emergence of our own species. The discovery of Ouranopithecus had changed my life. It had given me a purpose, a passion, and a deep appreciation for the wonders of the natural world. It had also taught me a valuable lesson, that the past is never truly gone. It lives on in our genes, in our bones, and in our stories. And as I stand here today, looking out at the mountains that cradled Ouranopithecus for millions of years, I can still hear Papoyanus's voice, whispering in the wind. The mountain remembers everything, Nikos, he'd say. And it will continue to reveal its secrets, one bone, one stone, one story at a time. The sun is setting now, casting long shadows across the valley. The air is cool and crisp, and the scent of pine and thyme fills my lungs. I close my eyes and take a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. I am Nikos, the grandson of a seeker, the student of a brilliant scientist, and the guardian of a remarkable story. And I will continue to listen to the mountain, to uncover its secrets, and to share its wisdom with the world. Because the story of Ouranopithecus is not just a story about the past. It's a story about the present, and about the future. It's a story about who we are, where we come from, and where we are going. And it's a story that will continue to unfold, for as long as the mountains stand and the wind whispers through the olive groves.